Hey friends, welcome back to Fantasy Awash. Today I am going to be doing the mid-year freak-out book tag, because who doesn't love to be part of a trend? Let's jump in. So this is my first time doing one of these tag trend things, and the way I understand it is that there's a bunch of questions, we go through the questions, and we talk about books. So it all sounds good. So let's dive into our first question. The best book that I've read so far this year would probably be Circe. It's a tough call. I've read a lot of books, but I absolutely loved Circe by Madeline Miller. It is a retelling of the Circe Greek mythology story. It's so compelling. Her prose are eloquent, beautiful. It's everything you could want in a mythological retelling. I honestly don't know if I have any notes for that book because I love it so much. It might be my favorite book of all time. If you're curious to hear more about it, I did a video review on all of the myths that were in Circe, and honestly, it was just such a good book that I absolutely loved it. The best sequel that I've read so far in 2023, that would probably be The Well of Ascension. I think I'm in the minority that The Well of Ascension is my favorite book of all of the Mistborn Era 1 books. I absolutely loved it. If not that, it would probably be Before They Are Hanged by Joe Abercrombie. I loved both of these books. I thought Well of Ascension was probably the best book too I had ever read. It's gotta be Well of Ascension. It's Well of Ascension. I loved Well of Ascension. And all of the political fantasy that takes place in that book I thought was really well done. I loved all of the new characters that we met in book 2. The thing that I really liked about this book that I found super interesting is that Sanderson, when sitting down to write Mistborn, that's the book he wanted to write. He ended up writing book 1 because he felt that the story needed it, but the book he really wanted to write was book 2, and I found that showed in the writing. I thought it was just the best of the 3 books. A new release that I haven't read yet that I really want to is The Book That Wouldn't Burn by Mark Lawrence. I haven't read anything by Mark Lawrence, but I saw this book has been praised by pretty much everyone that I've seen that I follow on BookTube. And typically I tend to align pretty similarly with a lot of these people's opinions. That's why I follow them. And I'm looking forward to reading that one. I don't know a whole lot about the plot other than it takes place in a library, and I am a sucker for a good library story. So all in all, that would probably be the one that I am most excited to read this year. My most anticipated release for the second half of the year, I feel like I'm going to be in the minority of this, but I really enjoyed The Stardust Thief by Chelsea Abdullah. I'm looking forward to The Ashfire King coming out by her later this year. I really like Middle Eastern lore and myth, so I super enjoyed that book 1. I know people had their issues with it, but for me, it was a fun read and I had no issues with it, so I'm looking forward to that for the sequel this year. Biggest disappointment was Way of Kings, and if you want to know more about that, you can watch that video. I'll link it right here. The biggest surprise I think was probably Trust of the Emerald Sea. I thought it was such a beautiful book. I really loved Hoyd's voice in this story. I loved the protagonist in this story. I have a video on my praising of Trust, so all in all, that was probably my biggest surprise of the year, but I really enjoyed it. I don't know why it was such a big surprise for me, but ended up really loving it. Favorite new author is definitely Joe Abercrombie. I absolutely have loved First Law, and I cannot wait to dig into the rest of that series. I've only read the first 3 books, but I have all the other ones waiting to go, so I'm really excited to dive back into the First Law universe. My new fictional crush would probably be Sam Glocta. I really love a good morally gray character. I love a humorous character, and he definitely ticks those boxes for me. I loved reading all of Glocta's chapters. He was the most consistent for me, I found, in the First Law trilogy, so probably Sam Glocta. I don't know what that says about me, but alas, here we are. A book that made me cry. I don't really cry when I read, so that's just not really gonna happen for me. Sorry. A book that made me happy. I had a lot of really good books this year, so I'm trying to think like, oh, The Princess Bride. The Princess Bride made me super happy. That was just such a fun book, and if you've seen the movie, you definitely need to read the book because it's just as good, if not better. It adds and fills out the story in a beautiful way, so highly, highly, highly recommend that you check that out. The most beautiful book I purchased this year was definitely Trust of the Emerald Sea. It is just such a beautiful book. I love holding it, and I'm still waiting for Secret Project number 2 to show up in physical copy, so I'm excited to have that one as well. What books do I need to read by the end of the year? There are a whole list of books that I really want to read by the end of this year. There's probably too many to name. I definitely want to read more of The Cosmere. I want to read more of First Law, and I would like to read more of Discworld, I would say, in terms of series. Those are probably the ones that I'm looking at. I'm also currently listening to The Hobbit, and I am planning on probably listening to the rest of The Lord of the Rings and The Silmarillion as long as it is narrated by Andy Serkis, because Andy Serkis is just the greatest thing that's happened to audiobooks aside from Stephen Pacey, and that is fact. They are the two best narrators that I've ever come across. They are so good. They should narrate absolutely everything because it would make the world a much more enjoyable place for audiobooks. I know that this isn't as long as some other people's videos, but all in all, I have said a lot about these books on my channel. If you want to find out my opinions on them, you can go and look through my videos because I did a lot of reviews earlier in the year. If you want to let me know what you are most excited to read and what you have been the most surprised by this year, please let me know in the comments down below. If you would like to help support me, you can always hit like and subscribe. Or if you would like to follow me on Instagram to keep up with what I'm reading, you can find me on Instagram at FantasyAwash. And as always, I will see you next time.